In Season 2, Episode 7 of The Chosen, Andrew was pretty upset with Mary Magdalene. But they may be more alike than we thought. So let's get into it. Welcome to The Snipe Life, where we look at creativity through the lens of Christianity. And today we're going to be looking at The Chosen, Season 2, Episode 7. Specifically, we're going to be talking about Andrew and everything that's going on with him.
Oh, did we interfere with sleeping in?
Your sails are still full, I see.
Now, when we first watched this episode, I know a lot of people had a very adverse reaction to Andrew and all that he was going through. He seemed extremely upset and lashing out at people that maybe didn't deserve it. Now, the person that he lashed out to most was Mary Magdalene. And this was a huge issue for a lot of people. I know that they struggled with this part of the episode. But to be honest, I think that Andrew's arc is almost identical. Very, very similar to Mary Magdalene's from episode 6 and episode 5. So we're going to go back through, and we're going to talk about how Andrew and Mary have similar failure points, and how they're alike. To do this, first, we have to go back to episode 6. But before we do that, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel if you want to see more of these videos, and to dig really deep into The Chosen. Once we're done with Season 2, we're going to go back to Season 1 and talk about all the episodes there, so you don't want to miss out. Alright, let's get into Scene 1.
You're certain here it says forever?
Yeah, I think that's what life imprisonment means. They signed the declaration on the spot. In blood. We'll never see him again.
You can break him out. I know some people.
The Zealots against Herod's army. That's a fight I'd pay to see. It's maximum security up there.
That would make it more fun.
No. No. You're not a part of that order anymore. You're a part of this one.
We shouldn't limit our options, is my point.
Now isn't the time for that.
I'm afraid the situation is worse than you know. What could be worse? It never used to happen to me before I met you guys.
So in episode 6, we see as John the Baptizer is arrested. And obviously this affects Andrew the most. Even though Philip was probably closer to John the Baptist than even Andrew was, Andrew is extremely affected by this. His mentor, his leader, the person that he saw as a figure to be followed, is now gone. And possibly forever, never to be seen again by Andrew. And we know through scripture that this is the case. John the Baptist will die in prison. So at this point in this whole saga, we see that this is quite natural. Andrew is mourning. He's upset. He's freaking out a little bit. Because what does this mean for their group? What does this mean for John? What does this mean for John's disciples? And what is Andrew supposed to do about it? He doesn't know. And so he's really worried, which is the start of his downfall. Now this, to me, is the very first trigger that gets Andrew to be where he is in episode 7 and even in episode 8. Now, if we line these two things up, we see as Mary is triggered by a Roman here at first, and then we see here as Andrew is triggered by the arresting of John the Baptist. These are the first trigger points that get them both to start reacting the way that they do. And I don't think it's a coincidence. After Mary has seen this Roman, she begins to have a horrible day. When she gets back to the camp, she doesn't do things quite right because she's distracted. She can't teach Rhema properly. And if you want to talk about this episode with us thoroughly, we've done a whole video about it that you can see right here. But really the second step for Mary here is this negative self-talk. It's Mary calling herself a failure and not good enough for the situation. So let's see where Andrew's second step comes in. Where does it go after John the Baptist has been arrested? And how does Andrew react after everything that happened at the end of episode 6? As they're taking the grain and as the Pharisees seem to be coming after them in some way. So let's watch this next scene.
Look, I don't know why the grain thing bothers you so much. Jesus didn't mind.
The Pharisees did mind. And they'll report him now.
Jesus knows how to handle himself. You don't have to ride to his rescue all the time.
Seriously? You? The master of riding to his rescue?
Yeah, all right. I did that a few times. I know it doesn't help.
You know what they're doing to John. We can't let them do that.
We
to
won't.
Jesus. Then let's not make a scene everywhere we go. That's all I'm saying. It's common sense.
I think he's more of an uncommon sense guy. Get used to different, brother.
I'm being smart. What?
smarter Matthew and Thomas.
So Matthew's smart now. The Messiah really has come.
Well, forget I said anything. Let's just fish.
As he said, no one ever has to guess what's going on in your head.
There's nothing in my head. It's in our bones. Don't have to think.
Must be nice.
What?
Having nothing in your head.
Don't be smart. It's just the same.
That leaves true when you pluck the heads of grain at what he killed.
Everybody did that. Except Mary.
She'd already done her part.
You think you're never gonna make another mistake in your life?
She was gone for days.
True. Don't exaggerate.
Me not to exaggerate? Are you telling me not to exaggerate? That... Wow!
Look, she went through something horrible and terrifying, and she dealt with it the best way she knew how.
She should have gone to Jesus.
She knows that now. If you remember, Jesus was disarming crazy Simon of his dagger.
Oh, he's the crazy Simon?
I'm a married man who worked in honest trade.
Worked an honest trade dishonestly.
Here's how I met Jesus. Unexpected roads.
Gambling. Brawling. That also unexpected.
You gamble too!
And I'll never do it again. And if I'm ever tempted, I'll ask the rabbi for help. Certainly won't do anything selfish. Leaves the group stranded at camp for 2 days starving, or puts Jesus on edge. Makes him snap at the Pharisees who are hunting us down now.
He was grieving John's arrest, and they're not hunting us down. You're so dramatic.
Word reaches Jerusalem that he claimed the title Son of Man and Lord of the Sabbath. They'll hunt him down, they'll put him away. It could completely ruin all the plans for the sermon. Erase all the momentum we've gained. That's what I'm afraid of.
Jerusalem doesn't even open the mail from Vadikelt. Andrew, this is just fear talking.
I've been at this longer than you. When they decide they don't like you, it's over. John might spend his life in prison.
But Herod arrested John, not the Sanhedrin.
Sanhedrin arrests people all the time.
You're the one who told me he was the Messiah. Am I gonna have to be the one to remind you now?
The very fact that he's the Messiah means there's going to be trouble. You get it? Maybe even a war.
If you were building an army, would you start with little James and Thaddeus?
Simon!
You think he's drawing up military plans all the time he goes away to desolate places?
He never comes back with anything.
You know what? Let's just fish. All right? Can we? Andrew, my little brother whom I love very much.
What?
I need you to take a very long, deep breath. Can you do that?
What? Why?
Just please, ask God to give you...
I knew it!
Hey,
I knew
get
it!
it together, man.
So in this scene, we see the next two triggers for Andrew. We kind of get this flashback to episode 6 at the end where all the disciples are eating grain and the Pharisees basically yell at Jesus for letting that happen. And this is a big deal for Andrew because he doesn't want to be on the bad side of the Pharisees or the Sanhedrin. He doesn't want Jesus to be arrested by them because he understands how it looks, right? This random rabbi is claiming to be the Son of Man. He's invoking that title of being the Son of God. And this is a big, big deal for the Pharisees and for the Sanhedrin. So Andrew is worried that Jesus is going to be arrested by the Sanhedrin and that the rest of the group could be arrested as well just because he invoked that name, Son of Man, because they'll believe that he's a false prophet, that he's a false teacher. Now, we as the viewer understand that this is partially true. Yanni and Shmuel are trying to enforce the law and get people involved that could do something about this Jesus guy. And as Peter tries to calm Andrew down, Andrew just gets more and more agitated, understanding that, yeah, he could be right, that the Pharisees could be coming after Jesus, and that even though it was this little town that he did this healing in, they could still get the word out. They could still write a letter to the higher ups, which we know by the end of episode 7, they do talk to Shmuel and Yanni. So just like Peter earlier on telling Matthew, hey, I don't want you writing down all this stuff because I don't want Jesus' words to be tied up. I don't want Jesus to be taken advantage of. Andrew is kind of doing the same thing here, where he doesn't want Jesus' name to be spread everywhere so quickly because he's afraid. He's afraid of Jesus being taken. He's afraid of this whole thing being ruined. And he's just seen it with John the Baptist, so why couldn't it happen with Jesus as well? So we see the first two triggers with Andrew. The first one as John the Baptist is arrested, and the second one is Andrew is sort of coming up with his own story of what's going to happen to Jesus because of the grain and because of healing on Sabbath. And don't you see the similarities? At first, we see the Roman soldier with Mary. She encounters one again and is freaked out by it. She doesn't know what to do. And then afterwards, because of her distraction and everything else, she starts this negative self-talk and not being able to fulfill what she was trying to do with Rhema by teaching her. She's forgetting things and she's making a mess of it in her mind. Now, Mary's third trigger is a confirmation of her second. If she's telling herself that she's a failure and that she's not good enough, and then a demon-possessed man comes in and she cannot help him, making sure that she knows that she's a failure and she's not good enough, then what does that lead her to? It leads her to run back to her old life, to give up on trying to be this good person that she was trying to be, and just go back to where she thinks that she belongs. Now, although Andrew doesn't deal with the same struggles that Mary has, he has a different path back to selfishness. And we see that in this episode as well. As Andrew is making up the story about how the Sanhedrin are going to arrest Jesus, and everything's going to go wrong, and everything's going to be horrible, right then is when the confirmation comes. The Romans on the beach, headed straight towards Jesus, and he is in disbelief. We see that as he turns around and falls over and stands up. He's stunned for a moment. And then immediately the next thing that he does is shout, "I knew it! I knew this was going to happen!" And we see as the confirmation of Andrew's fears come to light. And this is why Andrew is so animated. This is why Andrew is so angry and upset during this episode, because what he feared would happen has now come true, and he is freaking out because of it. And so just as Mary's struggle is with alcohol and gambling, Andrew's struggle becomes fear and worry, just as dangerous, but in a different way. Now, while Mary blames herself and doesn't seek forgiveness because she thinks she doesn't deserve it, Andrew lashes out, and he blames pretty much everybody but himself. And most of all, Mary. So let's watch this next scene and see a little bit of a confrontation between Mary and Andrew.
What happened?
He stood there and did nothing while he was arrested.
He was specific.
Detained, not arrested.
Those are just words. Have you no experience with Rome?
We have to go after them.
He agreed to surrender peacefully.
No! No! What if they change their minds? Have you forgotten what they're doing to John?
You're terrifying her. I will be fine.
Well, I'm going. They're headed north. I'll catch them in Jotapata and petition for his release.
Andrew, he didn't ask you to help.
He shouldn't have to! I don't recognize any of you.
Brother, you're not yourself.
Maybe I should come with you. I feel responsible.
You might be responsible.
Andrew,
How could you leave?
stop this right now.
It isn't anyone's fault.
Mary, please, stay. I'll accompany Andrew. I had lots of experience waiting for my rabbi outside jails.
Why wait? Let's break him out.
Don't wait up.
Andrew gives himself over to the fear. He gives himself over to the worry. And because of that, he goes into this problem-solving mode of pushing everybody away and just wanting to save Jesus no matter what. He's ready to leave the group and just run after Jesus without them. And so you see what I'm saying? Just like Mary, he has the same triggers. Yet he falls into a slightly different trap. Not only has he just lost John the Baptist, but now he's lost Jesus as well, and he has no idea what's going on. He wasn't there on the shore. He didn't hear what was going on. And so immediately he's just freaking out. He wants to save Jesus. He wants to petition for his release, whatever he can do. So now we come to the culmination of all of what Andrew's been feeling. Not only is he angry and brooding to himself, but now he's lashing out to the group as well, to the point where he's yelling at them. He's saying that I shouldn't have to be asked to go save my rabbi. I shouldn't have to be asked to do that. And not only that, but he's looking around and he's saying, I don't recognize any of you. So we see as Andrew allows himself to be taken over by this fear and this worry and this doubt, the lack of trust. This is important because even at the beginning of episode 7, we hear Andrew say,
Have some faith, man.
Faith isn't my problem.
but it kind of seems like he does lack faith, doesn't it? It kind of seems like he doesn't trust Jesus. Now, I know this struggle well. My biggest struggle is with fear. My fear of rejection, my fear of disappointment, my fear of not being good enough. And so with Andrew, I can understand why he's so upset here. His fears are being realized. But the problem is, while he's saying with his mouth that he would go to Jesus and that he would, do everything perfectly, he still is letting himself be taken over by this fear, this anxiety, and this worry, to the point where he starts to blame everybody, the whole group, and specifically Mary Magdalene. He literally says to her, well, you might be responsible. And this is on top of her already feeling guilty for everything that's happened. This is on top of her already coming back to the group and hoping that they would forgive her. But in this moment, she still feels that little glimmer of guilt, that little mote of unforgiveness. And it's Andrew that keeps her there. And we see the consequences of this in episode 8 as well, as Mary is still feeling guilty. And Andrew's hurt begins to spread, as later on we hear even John say,
I think we should do what he said and wait here for him.
Oh yes, great advice coming from someone who disappeared for 2 days.
Although most of the group is supportive and trying to help get her back to where she was, these are the consequences from her doing what she did. And now that guilt is starting to set in a little bit again for her. Now, I do think all of this is significant. The way that Andrew's acting and the way that it's not really settled. Remember, we don't really see Andrew talk to Jesus throughout all the rest of this season. So we're going to have to wait to season 3 to see if any of this is even resolved in some way. If Jesus kind of tells Andrew, hey, you shouldn't speak to people like that. You should forgive. And I wonder if we'll see some of that verse come in of, you should forgive 77 times 7 times. It would be interesting to see that. But I do think that Mary and Andrew are linked here in some way. Both of them have gone through these failure moments. One being kind of sucked back into a life of alcoholism and gambling and running away from her problems. And the other being sucked into fear and worry, running at their problems, trying to fix everything themselves. Both of these paths are dangerous and harmful, not only to themselves, but to the people around them as well. And oftentimes fear and anxiety don't just stay. They spread to the people around you, especially if you're with them all the time. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this all comes out with Andrew. If there's going to be a continuation, or if he's going to kind of calm down a little bit. I guess we'll see next season. Now, Andrew's story in this episode ends as he has a conversation with Tamar. And then we see as Yusuf comes along as well and tells them, you need to get out of the city. Shmuel and Yanni are looking for them, and they're trying to make a case against Jesus. I think, again, this confirms Andrew's fears, that people are after Jesus, not just the Romans, but the Pharisees as well. And so he's taking this very seriously, which I think is a good natural thing to do, but he's allowing himself to be consumed by this fear and worry and doubt, and he's not fully trusting Jesus with it all. So Andrew is in a hard place, and there are some things in this episode that he just did wrong. He shouldn't have yelled at Mary. He shouldn't have lashed out at the rest of the group, and he should have just let Jesus take control and trusted him in those situations. But we're all human. We all make mistakes. And even today, I struggle with this kind of thing all the time. When I believe that I know the right thing to do, I go head first at it, especially when I'm worried or fearful. I want to take control and do it myself rather than allow God to do what he wants to do in the situation. So let me know what you thought about Andrew here. Did you agree with him, disagree with him, or somewhere in the middle? Well, I hope you liked this video, and thanks for being part of our community. I just wanted to give a huge shout out to our patrons and our channel members. We've gotten a whole bunch of new channel members recently, and so it's been amazing to meet you guys and just get to talk. But if you guys want to join them, you can press the join button below or the Patreon link in our description. As always, thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.